Hey guys, I'm Shantanu Joglekar. Uh, I'm a part of Aussie Rules in India, and you're listening to A Yank on the Footy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 88 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels from Sandusky, Ohio, and I'm thrilled that you're listening. Don't forget that you can find everything related to the podcast at the new website at yankonthefooty.com. I hope you'll consider checking it out. You can leave a voicemail there. You can share your thoughts on the episodes there. You can sign up for the mailing list as well. There's also an opportunity for you to read my blog that I've been posting there as well. And you can subscribe there and get all of the information sent to you as it is released. Now, I'm really looking forward to sharing this episode with you that is in episode 88. This was one that was several weeks in the making as we were trying to coordinate times. You'll quickly realize that we had four of us in the conversation on three continents in four different time zones. So we had two gentlemen in Australia, one gentleman in India, and myself here in the United States. It was an absolute blast to have this discussion. Learned a lot about the game in India, and I have to tell you that the three gentlemen that I spoke to, just absolute stand-up gentlemen, and thrilled to have been able to talk with them, and hope to talk with them again in the future as well. Now, ladies and gents, if you like the show, consider helping it out at Buy Me a Coffee, or if you are interested in any gear for the podcast, you can find that on the Redbubble page. Both of those are linked on my new website, yankonthefooty.com. You can find those there. Again, I do encourage you to consider signing up for the mailing list. You can do that either through the link that is in the show notes or the subscription, the mailing list link that's right on the website as well. You can do that there, and I'm combining those lists into one. If you like the show, I'd appreciate it if you'd consider sharing it with your friends and family, putting it out on your social media, telling them about it. Letting them know what you think. Letting me know what you think with a review. You can do that on the website as well. Those will go out to Apple Podcasts as well as going up on the website. So this has, I think, been a really good tool to allow me to find new ways to engage with the audience. So sit back, relax. I think you're going to like this discussion. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of laughter. There were a couple of hiccups with the Wi-Fi where people froze up during the course of the discussion, but I've got those edited out. And it's a great discussion on how these two brothers brought the game to a certain area in India, and how one of these gentlemen has embraced this game and has become an ambassador for the game after having discovered it about 15 years ago. So sit back and relax. I think you're going to like it. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Craig Wessels from A Yank on the Footy, and I am back with a brand new episode. And this is one that has been in the works for several weeks, if not at least a month right now. There have been some pre-discussions that have taken place where one of the guests and I talked for a couple of hours a couple of Fridays ago about everything in the world, I think, if I remember correctly. And we're going to be talking about the introduction of the AFL into the great country of India and how that game is growing in that country. And we're going to talk to some of the people who are involved in playing the game there, people who are involved in bringing the game to that country and exposing the wonderful people of India to this game. So my guests are Lincoln Harris, Rhan Harris, and Shantanu Joglekar. And we're in four different time zones on three different continents. So we're going to see how Zoom treats us tonight. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on. I truly appreciate you fitting this into your schedule. I think this is going to be a lot of fun this evening.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Craig. Always up for talking footy.
You bet. Thank you. And Shantanu, welcome, sir. So glad that you're able to be here with us today.
Glad to be here.
This is really exciting. I've been kind of bragging to my students at school that I was going to be having a conversation with people on several different continents tonight, and they're starting to think I'm a little bit crazy for doing all of this, but I'm really enjoying it. So, we're here to talk about this game that a couple of you grew up with, and that two of us have fallen in love with well into our lifetime. So Shantanu, let me ask you first. When did you first discover what Australian rules football was?
So it was by chance. So in where I live in Mumbai, there is a huge ground park called Shivaji Park, and me and my friend were just walking through that park one day, and we saw a bunch of people, including Link. It was basically a foreigner, a bunch of people, Indians and a foreigner, playing rugby. That is what we thought at first. But then, knowing rugby, we just passing by, trying to look and what the game is. Why is a random foreigner playing the game with Indians? These all thoughts start going through your head when you're not exposed to anything like that. So we just stopped for looking at the game, and then being in different sports, we could figure that this is completely different. This is new. There's proper handballing, which is not rugby. So we figured that much. After about 2 minutes or 3 minutes, one of our very good friends right now, Sumesh, he came along and asked us if we would like to join. And
okay,
sure, that's how it all started. That's the very first meeting with Lincoln.
So you had never even seen it on television or anything like that before?
No,
okay.
No.
So this is, that's, I kind of discovered it on television. I've never seen it in person. So that, we've got a bunch of teams here in the US. I've never seen a game in person before. So that's what we're kind of opposites. We're kind of opposite sides of the same coin, which is kind of interesting. So Lincoln, Rhan, the two of you were part of this group that was playing the game or going out for a kick when Shantanu discovered you guys.
Yeah, well, that's right. I was there because I was living in Mumbai. So I shifted to Mumbai in 2010, and after maybe 6 months, I felt the need to kick the footy. And I'd been playing some street cricket with a bunch of guys in the area where I lived. And when, I sort of realized that, well, I could just, start kicking the footy with these guys. And so I brought the footy out and we got a kick-to-kick happening. And that was with Sumesh, who Shantanu mentioned, who was a chai walla, a chai seller on the street corner of where I lived. And he was sort of the main point of contact with the local guys who we'd get together for a kick. And I guess it developed to the point where we had enough players regularly to play little scratch matches, sort of, 6 or 7, 8 on 8,
right,
type thing at Shivaji Park. And I mentioned to Rhan that, that's what I'd started. And I guess, he immediately recognized the potential in it because of his involvement and my involvement with RecLink Australia going back to sort of the late 90s, and the way that RecLink has used Aussie rules to include people in sport and recreation. And so I think when Rhan heard that I'd started a kick-to-kick, he was probably thinking, of the possibilities. And so he actually got some gear bundled up from Melbourne and sent it over.
Oh, terrific.
In a box, some footies and cones, and he'd written on the side, humanitarian relief. And so that arrived, and we sort of, that helped to support what I was doing, and we got more local guys involved just through word of mouth and through playing. And then Shantanu and Saurabh came along and saw what we were doing and started playing. And then they became very enthusiastic. And so that was really the genesis of it, from a very, humble kick to kick.
Okay. So Rhan, let me ask you, did you get a discounted rate on postage since you sent it marked humanitarian aid?
Well, no, we did actually have to we did have to consider how we got it into the country, because if it was seen to have a commercial value, then it would have cost more to have sent it than just organised it there.
Oh,
so
okay.
we actually
Well, that
wrote
makes sense.
humanitarian. We officially marked it humanitarian sporting aid or sporting relief, but we put in the word sporting. So the
Okay.
CEO at the time and I sort of hatched that idea, and it sort of lives on. But yeah, it was a starter kit, and like, for any of us, you get handed a jumper or some way of identifying, some sort of token or souvenir that you can hold in your hands, and it represents, your connection to a game and a community. So, I think, I don't know, little Brisbane Lions tops or whatever, and it's just, and that's what we find is if you can put your hands on something, then it's starting to build that connection. So yeah, it was just like a seed that we were able to send over.
Terrific. And once you got playing, Shantanu, what were your first reaction when you actually were getting out there? Now, did you play any kind of? I imagine you probably played some soccer growing up.
Yeah.
So Shantanu, you played some soccer. Had you played any rugby at all when you were a kid as well, or were you pretty much just?
I did not play rugby.
Okay, so
it's just something we viewed on the TV.
Okay, so what were your first thoughts when you were getting out on the ground for the first time and you were having a kick and you were learning how to handball properly and that type of thing? And what's going through your mind the first time that you're trying this?
It was really blank, because I wanted to learn this game. It seemed really interesting because thus far I had only played a game that involved one of the faculties, like you only using, I play table tennis, so I'm only using my hands really. Football involves the legs. I mean, it is of course a whole body thing, but it's Aussie rules is like you're using your hands, you're using your legs, you're using your body to tackle, you're blocking. It involves every possible movement from your body. So it was really interesting the very first time we started playing. So
now, they didn't start you out tackling right away, did they?
there was Lincoln did not. Lincoln did not hold back. That was
he didn't hold back. Okay. Okay. So Lincoln, you were getting, the people you were going out initially with, they were Australian expats for the most part that were going out for a kick?
No, they were entirely local guys. So
okay.
I guess that was how what we have done in India is quite different to my understanding of what's developed elsewhere in Asia, where it has predominantly been expats getting together to play and then play other expat teams from other Asian countries. But because where I was living in Mumbai was not an expat area at all, like there were really no other expats around, and we were new to Mumbai and we hadn't connected in with the expat community. It was just about the local guys. And they were always there and always up for something. So it seemed the natural progression to focus on getting them involved. And after about, I guess, maybe 6 months, we wanted to put on a little tournament, I guess, as a way to showcase the skills that that they developed. So we held a Mumbai Cup. And that was at Shivaji Park. It was very informal. I mean, we got some trophies made and we had a few banners and things, but essentially it was just a way to sort of, bring the year to a close and for the guys to feel like they were participating in something beyond just, very casual Saturday kick to kick.
Right.
And then beyond that, we realized that there were some other groups in other parts of the country who had also come across Aussie rules and were doing their own thing like we were on a very local level. And it was at that point that we connected with 2 other groups and came up with this idea of actually holding a national tournament. And so we then sort of set to the work of identifying where we would hold that tournament and how we would get everyone there, and the fact that some of the guys were still not adults, they were in their teenage years, so we needed their parents' consent, obviously.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Yeah,
we had to raise the money, to buy the train tickets. The tournament was held in the south of India, in the state of Kerala, and probably I'd say 2,000 kilometers from Calicut, in the north of the state of Kerala, and long way from Mumbai, overnight train trip. And some of the other groups came from even further away, and that was the first time we got together with other interested parties and talked about the possibilities of footy in India and how we could grow it organically, because there was really no funding available from the AFL at that point, or
right.
No corporate sponsorship. It was only about, well, how can we do this on a very low budget? But I mean, the overall result was fantastic, and I think the guys from Mumbai, some of them were leaving the city for the first time. I'd never actually been away from Mumbai. I'd never left their parents for an overnight trip. So in ways beyond footy, it was a real opportunity for those individuals to grow, I think. And, that was always the view that Rhan and I had taken with what we were doing. It was never purely about footy, Australian rules football. It was always about how can we use this sport to encourage the growth of these individuals, and for them to start thinking about, beyond themselves, how do they use the sport to reach others who may not have the opportunity to be fit and active.
So Rhan, at this point in time, were you working behind the scenes still in Victoria, or were you in India at this time helping out?
I was in Victoria.
Okay.
And I was working for the Salvation Army in Victoria, running a football team primarily composed of drug addicts, actually. Guys going through alcohol and substance abuse problems. And so that team played in the RecLink League, so it was one of the main teams there. So I was in a good position, to tap into the resources, and I was sort of the spirit of what footy and RecLink does. So I was behind the scenes, but I think I came over, it would have been 2011, early days, and we were having a kick. Samesh was kicking in his flip-flops, and we had a big heavy ball that was waterlogged, and I think there was maybe 3 or 4 of us having a kick that time. So I got in on the ground floor.
Okay.
So I knew there was a passion there. But otherwise was in Australia, and just talking with Link about the possibilities, and really, I mean, watching it grow. Like I'd get these reports, and I'd hear from other people, including Mad's partner, Lincoln's partner, Mad, that it's actually got some legs here. We got 60 guys last week, or we had a carnival, or just seemed to be just popping out, blossoming.
And and I'm just going to say it right now that the motives that you've had in getting this developed, and what you were doing with the club that you were coaching as well. I mean, I'm not sure if I've talked to 2 more honorable guys in terms of the stuff that you're doing to help other people out. I mean, that's just really, really impressive. So I mean, that's a hat tip to both of you for that. So I mean, that's really cool. That's really cool.
Well, I thank you. I appreciate that. But I just think that Aussie Rules is such a great medium for this. It's a real sort of privilege to be able to stand in front of a product. By product I mean the sport, and take it to people. It's the easiest job in the world for me, because it's something that we can evidence based. I see it all the time how this works in the most simple form. So, sort of, might seem like honourable thing to do, and it is, but it's also a very easy thing to do. And I think the transferability of that, Link knew, when we were back in Victoria, he saw how quickly and simply it gets people involved like nothing else. So, you know, I feel like we've sort of got a golden ticket in a way, and we just have to be the best representatives of that. And that's what that's what just kept us in this game.
I think one of the strongest examples of that was a trip that Rhan and Reckling organised to Alice Springs to take a team from Melbourne to Alice to play a couple different Indigenous sides. Oh, no, sorry. Well, one at Uluru and one at Alice Springs. And I had the good fortune to join the touring party from Melbourne. And that would have been before I'd moved to India.
2008.
Yeah, right. So just before I moved to India. And I mean, the experience of playing the sport in a completely new and different environment with a completely different set of people, but to see, as Rhan said, how well it transfers. I think in some ways that planted an idea for me that I didn't realize at the time, that when I got to India, sprouted, you know, in that, okay, this is all new, all the people are different, but there's no reason why the sport can't flourish here as well. So I guess, you know, I've sort of seen the power of football in different contexts and understand really well how easy it is to transfer.
Well,
but Link, just as a side note, I spoke to someone today, Mike, who came on that trip. He called me today and he reminisced about that. That's 13 years later. And, you know, he's someone who was in early days of recovery, really struggling. And just this morning, we spoke about that trip and what it meant for our, you know, collective journey.
That's terrific. That's fantastic. Now, Shantanu, you know, we lost you there for a second. I'm glad you're back on, sir. How did you do as far as recruiting some of your friends to come join this game? How did that conversation go when you went and told your friends, hey, I discovered this new game that you guys might enjoy?
Well, as a novelty, people did like the game. It was fun. I mean,
okay,
very first time you come for the kick to kick, it's really fun because you're going easy. But, you know, once you start playing the game, that's when the whole idea kicks in. Like it's a full contact game, and we never played any kind of like a mellowed down version of Aussie rules in Mumbai. It was always full force, full contact.
Okay.
So yeah, we loved it. Most of them who really joined us.
So how since you went full go pretty much from the outset, how did that translate when you went on this trip to go play the clubs from the other parts of the country? Were they as advanced in their skills as you were?
Well, the very first tournament that Lincoln spoke about in 2012, I think, or 13, we went there with the expectation that, well, yeah, we are really good at this.
Okay.
Well, we were proved wrong. Like, you know that you're humbled in such ways that you never forget. Like,
okay.
Well, that's the challenge. That was the challenge of learning a game in a vacuum. It was sort of relative to nothing apart from yourselves.
Good point. Yes, that's a great point. I like that. That's a really good point. So you know, I had a couple things that, you know, that Lincoln had helped to put together as far as some questions and some things to address. But how did Ricky Ponting get involved with getting this off the ground? And I know I had heard the name before. I know he was a tremendous cricket player, but how did he impact this game in India?
Well, I think that is how it originally was introduced in Calcutta, because he must have been playing for the Calcutta team in the Indian Premier League, the T20 tournament. And so I think he got invited down to a school, something like that, and then took a footy down or somehow introduced Aussie rules. And amongst that first group, there are a number, or maybe just one individual, who came across, like sort of liked the idea or took it on. Do you know more about it, Shantanu? That's sort of...
Yeah, I mean, Ricky Ponting actually introduced it as a warm-up game in the Kolkata Knight Riders
Okay.
team. That's the IPL team. So, and then I think that's where when you before the game, there's a warm-up going on and people start watching, and that's how it basically took off. And of course, that too, well, as Lincoln said, that there was an event where he took the footy, and I mean, just a random event.
Okay. So as the game is growing and it's starting to get some traction, and it sounds like it's being played in a number of different communities around the country, in a number of different states, and I'm probably going to get the pronunciations wrong here, but I think I might have them correct here, which is what we talked about earlier, didn't we, Shantanu? We make sure you get that pronunciation correctly there. So how long before the game spread beyond Kolkata? And is it Kerala? Is it the name of the other town? And was there any kind of a resistance? Did you have anybody pushing back against learning, this new game?
Oh, you're asking. Okay.
Well, for you or for whomever.
I mean, there was really no resistance ever. People enjoyed it. It was always a collective effort, so far as I can remember. Because at that time, I was really just a player, and I was older than most of the players, so I was not really involved. But Lincoln managed everything, most of it. Lincoln, yeah. So
I think the only resistance that we faced was from parents who, didn't know of the game and didn't know why their son should be going off interstate. But and I mean, there were occasional injuries, and that can definitely put a dampener on enthusiasm, parents' enthusiasm. But I think as it went on and the parents came to know what was involved, and that we were taking great care with their kids as much as possible, and we would always resolve injuries, and there was a lot of care involved. Then that doubt was overcome. But I mean, at an individual level, from participants, what I found was that as soon as if they were open to the idea of playing, if they would actually come down and play, then once they'd been involved, they couldn't resist it, because I think, as Shantanu said, it's such a different sport for an Indian to play, having contact and being full body and lots of aspects, that that really was something very novel. And the adrenaline involved, because it is full contact, that's also, I think, quite addictive. And so once we had a start, it was just a matter of finding a way to get more involved. And then once people were involved, they stayed involved.
And it had to be a tremendous amount of trust. As you were saying, you had many of these young men that were going along to play with you had not left home before. I mean, you had to develop a great deal of trust with these families to do that, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think the main way we achieved that was through the different individuals, like local guys like Shantanu and Saurabh Samesh Mule, who I guess were leaders amongst their group of friends and in their communities, in a sense. And so by them understanding the game and knowing me, they could then go out to some of these parents and physically go to homes to explain, that that their kids would be looked after, and that it was a great opportunity for them to represent their state. And I know in some cases the guys would have to open the India Unbound website, on their phone or a computer, and say, oh, this is Lincoln, and here he is winning an award because I won a tourism award, and they'd show my photo, and that would sort of help reassure the families that I do exist. And
I completely understand that. I mean, were there a number of instances where you were visiting someone's home and having tea and having to explain it's going to be okay if we go out of town and your son goes with us for a couple of days? I bet you had to do that.
Yeah, I did have to do that. Yeah. And, that was the groundwork that I guess went into it in the early days, because we were talking about starting it from scratch. This wasn't something existing that we could take
Right.
on or improve. There was nothing. And then we created a group of people who were really enthusiastic. And as I said, they then sort of, once they understood the possibilities, then they became real advocates for what we were trying to do, and they would go out and explain it, and I guess reassure parents that it was a great opportunity.
Okay. Now Shantanu, you said something a moment ago about how you were quote unquote just a player. Now this was over a decade ago. Have you moved beyond a player? Are you now a coach?
Not a full-time coach, but yeah, I do help.
Okay. Okay.
So
That, I mean, that,
right now we
Shantanu is really a backroom power broker now for Aussie rules.
Fantastic. So you are a you're kind of a mouthpiece for the game right now that is helping to sell the game to other people in the country.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
Yeah, he's an administrator. So, just as we need players, enthusiastic players and coaches, I think, more important at an organizational level is people who are prepared to do work off the field, because it's easy to turn up and play because you get a direct benefit, but it's, there's no reward in a sense of being someone who has to organize and coordinate and fundraise and speak about the game, but actually sit on the sidelines and make sure it's all running smoothly. So I think, a lot of the guys that have been involved from early on, they don't all still play, but I think it's sort of a testament to the experience that they've had, that they've been willing to stay on and to try and grow the game, even though they're not, still directly involved in every event.
So Shantanu, are your playing days behind you now, or are you just an administrator?
Yes, I am now.
Okay.
But you always kick to kick, or
course,
training and that sort of thing.
Not playing as competitive as most of the people in India right now, but always a kick to kick is, you never know, say no to a kick to kick.
Okay, absolutely.
But even Rhan and I, sorry, Craig, when we started, it was, I mean, I don't have Rhan's background. Rhan grew up playing footy. He played at quite a high standard in Geelong and developed the skills through his teenage years. I didn't do that. I've never been much of a footballer, but the beauty of playing in India in the early days was I could feel like I was, half decent, because all the guys were new to the game. And so that was also a bit of a selfish motivation, was to feel like, okay, I'm getting a footy career here.
Well,
Well,
what Link and I said, that we knew that the game had developed because once upon a time they thought we were good players, and then they realised, oh, hang on, these guys might not be the elite athletes we thought they were, when they were exposed to the broader community and just develop the skills themselves. Like, oh, hang on, maybe they're not superstars. So yeah, but that's the beauty of Aussie rules generally, is even as you get older, the game slows down, but it still feels as quick. So it still delivers in the same way that it does as a junior.
So what, Shantanu, now that you are not playing in the games themselves now, what have you found to be the most rewarding part of being a footy power broker in India?
Well, as Lincoln said, I've always loved watching the game. So knowing that there are a few of my friends on the field giving the 100%, and they are, when you call themselves, like, I am from Mumbai and the team from Maharashtra, the state, represents the game, that's when I'm really excited to watch them. And I know that all this effort from Lincoln, me, my friends, I can see that in that game, that bringing everything together for that game, for the happiness that people feel that, oh wow, we are involved in this.
That's terrific. That's absolutely terrific. I mean, are you, do you ever stop to think what your life would be like had you not walked by that park that day?
I do not want to.
Okay. Okay.
Never,
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. Because I think you've met some wonderful people here with this, and
100%. Like, I cannot imagine not having met Lincoln now. He's one of the best people. Because of Lincoln, I've met Rhan. These two, the brothers, they're the highlight of my life, because I would definitely say that. They are the two greatest people I've known. 100%.
That's fantastic. And I know only these images on my screen are just really, really small, but I can see just a little bit of blushing in both of those camera images there, just a little bit of it. In fact, Lincoln has leaned back away from the camera a bit, so you can't quite make it out as easily. But you know what? I think those are some of the kindest things I think I've heard anybody say in a long, long time. And with you having found this game, and I know you said you don't know what it would be like and you wouldn't want to think about it, but you probably would have continued playing soccer. I mean, were you somebody who played cricket as well?
Not cricket, not all that much.
Okay. It's I kind of agree with you about the soccer. You were talking about table tennis where you're using just your hands, and soccer where you're using just your feet. I like to joke about footy or about soccer. I like to joke, and I'm an announcer for soccer, and I joke about soccer, and I call it a communist sport because they don't let you use all of your body parts. So so that's and maybe that joke may not go over very well in a lot of places around the world, or in some places, but it's so Rhan, I think your mic's off. There you go.
It's a restriction on free trade, right?
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Trying to control the means of production.
Good point. Yeah, I mean, I've always wondered that about soccer with the offsides rule. It's just it's like it's almost like you're getting penalized for being faster than your opponent. It's
I always feel like it's like being constipated watching soccer. It's like you're just waiting for something to happen and it just doesn't quite ever happen.
We actually at the high school where I teach, our soccer coach is actually English. He is British.
Get constipated.
Well, I am going to make sure that I send that part of the audio to him. I want him to hear that. That is brilliant.
I mean, with all due respect,
Yeah. Do you know how overused that line actually is?
Yeah.
There's a really interesting YouTube video on Aussie rules versus soccer. I'll share that link if I find it.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I've seen that one before, and
it's more of a funny video.
Okay, that one I would love to see that one. So, Rhan, we've been talking about a lot of the things that you have, that you've done in terms of your efforts with the club you were coaching. They talk about how footy is kind of like a transformative, has a transformative power, and I think you even mentioned that. And have you experienced that, or was it the conversation that you had recently? Is that kind of what you were alluding to?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually sort of reflected on what football means a lot, over the journey, from being a kid playing and living in Geelong, to then being living overseas for a little bit, and missing that connection and seeing that sort of absence in other people's lives, and then sort of revisiting it at a sort of critical point in my own journey. And as we said, just sort of seeing firsthand how, the efficacy of a game in, changing people's lives. And, and where I'm at now is, we it's just an understanding that regardless of, you know, your station in life, or, you know, what success you've achieved in the past, or materially where you're at, whatever your circumstance, that we all really need to be able to observe our own competence and usefulness. And that not all sports provide that for many reasons, you know, whether it be barriers to actual participation or just the complexity of the sport itself. But footy, and particularly the way we approach footy, you know, which is sort of a flexible footy, you know, which means modified rules, not always performance based. You know, it's not always about the competition, but just a flexible approach to use that sort of physical regimen as a way for people to see that, oh yes, I can contribute, regardless of their skill, their ability, you know, whatever their off-field situation is. So, you know, like we had an event just recently, and, you know, like it's all ability. So you've got people who've never played the game able to contribute, you know, next to people who've played at the highest level and experienced the highest success, and they can both walk off the field. You know, it's a real meritocracy. So, you know, if you put in, you'll get a return, and that's as much as we can ask of people, and then that's as much as we can give, is that opportunity. And, you know, as we say, when we go to India, you throw the ball in the field and 50 kids chase it. Like, there's the ball, go get it. You know, like, and whether or not you win the ball, it doesn't matter, because you know, it's your output that matters. So
right.
It's really it's providing the opportunity for people to express themselves, and in that expression, there's competence. Whether or not you've got ball handling skills, or you understand the game or not, you know, you can just go and jump on the ball. You know, like, it doesn't require anything. You know, there's no sort of preconditions to be able to do that. And that's why footy particularly works in that regard, because one ball, and you're not governed by a captain, you know, saying, oh, you're going to bat here, or you can't run down the field there because of offside. It's
right.
soap and slather. So yeah.
I think it's and I've said this in other forums and other instances, and I'm not saying this just because I'm doing a podcast about this game. I think it's the greatest game on the planet, quite frankly. I do, because it involves so many things that, you know, Shantanu, as you said, there are so many different aspects to this game. You're using every part of your physicality to play the game. You know, I think it's something that, with this podcast, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just, you know, to try to ring the bell and say, hey, people, pay attention to this game, is what I'm really trying to do. Yes, I'm trying to learn more about it myself, but I'm trying to bring the attention of it to other people, if you will.
Yeah, well, so sorry to jump in there, Craig, but you know, one of the ways that we do that is the modified version of the game that we play, which is called, well, it's called AFL Nines, but we call it Footy Nines. You know, is being able to just craft the game based on, you know, the location you've got and the, you know, the makeup of the participants, so that it can be accessible, you know, from day one. So, and our experience is, you know, like, of course, everyone wants to play the full contact, full ground version, but the net result at the end of a session is the same, you know, because you once you start running around and you get that. You get a touch and you get a little bit of physical contact, although it's typically non-contact.
Yeah.
The net result is the same, but, you know, in terms of risk management and as a concept for new players, it works so well.
Yeah, that's I know that I've seen some of the groups here in the States that are using that in some instances, but they're trying to play with the, I think, 18 on 18 here in most instances with the clubs that they've got here in the USAFL. You know, and there's a big push here for what's called the Footy 5,000, where they're trying to get 5,000 participants in the States playing footy. And it's interesting. I talked to a gentleman in the Dallas area who just started a new club that's starting this year, And he said it's a bit of an uphill battle because he said just in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there are 3,000 people playing rugby just in that area. And we're looking to try to get 5,000 people playing footy nationwide. So, Shantanu, how many people across India are playing the game right now? How many clubs are there, and how many people? Not all. You don't have to have an exact number, but is it a few hundred? Is it a few thousand?
It is a few thousand.
Okay,
but it's mostly kids. It's not like the school kids mostly.
Oh, so it's kind of like the Aussie kick that they have in Australia then.
Yeah.
Terrific.
I think one of the challenges, if I can just jump in there, is
Please.
with participation is, with the program that we've run, we've really targeted school age kids because you can easily go into, you can easily run a session, say at a state school, and have hundreds of kids participating. But when you want to run something outside of a school, then you've got to have a ground and you've got to, have coaches available, and the resources required are slightly more. And you've got to have, I guess, the kids who are enthusiastic enough to come outside of school hours, which is fine. And that's what we will always aim to do. But whether they go on from, say, a school age to actually want to play at a higher level, in what we call elite level, which is at a state level, you're just going to get a natural drop off of participants, especially as the game gets faster and more physical, and as they become 15, 16, 17, their demands in terms of study and the expectations that their parents have as to, their academic output, which is obviously a priority, and we would not ever try and get in the way of that, but it just means that there's a natural attrition rate. And so keeping them registered, into their 20s is a bit of a challenge. And there's not really the infrastructure across the country in terms of an organised competition, a regular, opportunity to play other states or other cities or whatever. So, there's a lot of barriers to actually, I guess, embedding that development. It's easier at a local level, but when it comes to a national level, it's much harder to really keep those people engaged over the longer term.
So that tends to be a little bit more impromptu, kind of like maybe almost a last minute type event. Like, hey, you know what, we've got enough people. Let's get together and try to have a nationwide tournament, if you will, next week or next month.
Well, no, I mean, what we have done every year except last year and probably this year, unfortunately, is to have, so just to go back to the story earlier, so we ran the tournament in 2012, I think it was, in Kerala,
12,
and that was with the three other spots, that came together. And then we had a couple national tournaments in that same way, and then we sort of, I guess, where we separated off from some of the others was in the idea that we had to run what we called a footy carnival, which was less of a focus on states playing against each other for the title of national champion, and more about how can we grow participation. So get the most number of people we can into one location to play, but to play in a way that is mindful of injury and risk more generally.
Right.
And also, the result is a really great experience for those individuals. So we came up with this idea of the All India Football Carnival. And so that we would run annually, and that was highly organised. For example, in 2019, the most recent one, we had about 400 participants, was it, Shantanu? And about 40% women. They'd come from all parts of India, like northeast, southwest, and I guess the key format of that carnival is that when everyone comes together, we run a day of training and development, and then at the end of that day, we separate everyone into new teams. So they're not representing their state; they're just playing with a group of completely new people that they haven't met before.
Okay.
And in doing so, you sort of eliminate some of, I mean, the level, the intensity is still there. You know, they're still playing very fiercely, but there's not the sort of the quite the same level of pride involved, because when you're representing your state, you're desperate to win.
Okay.
It's more about
Makes sense.
you know, winning for your own team. And so, you know, we feel like that has been a really important development in terms of bringing everyone together in the right spirit.
Okay. And, you know, you mentioned that about 40% of the participants in 2019 were women. Now, Shantanu, is that something that you're working on in India, is trying to grow the women's game as well and get them more involved?
We are trying to do that, but I mean, it's not the most important thing right now, because it's I mean, it's not really easy to get women involved, because it's really hard to explain this. There are family problems to start with. That's the most basic problem. And then getting all the women over here, and the risk, the safety that goes through everything. So we want as many women to be involved, but we do not want to compromise anything. So we just don't get.
I get that. Yeah.
We only think about how much we can handle, and then get as many as possible.
Okay.
And I think when you say family problems, I think I would interpret that to mean there's apprehension, you know, from a family as to allowing their daughter to go off and play something like this. So, you know, we have to be very careful to, you know, protect the participants and to explain to their families the measures we're taking to ensure their safety. But I think also, you know, in the question of women's participation, it's something that we've been working on over the years, but you really have to take a long-term approach to it, because you've got to build the infrastructure and the knowledge base amongst the senior coaches and coordinators about the things you've got to do to make sure that you know, that player safety is a priority, to make sure that women who participate feel welcome and comfortable. And that sort of understanding you only develop over many years. And I think we've got the guys now in the sort of senior management team who do understand that. But that's taken, you know, effectively 10 years to develop, to get to the point where I think we can now safely go out on a larger scale and start to attract women. And part of that process has been Rhan, having worked for RecLink and understand event management, you know, risk, and really bringing that expertise around how do you make sure that all your participants are cared for. And so there's that continual transfer of expertise from Australia, and particularly through Rhan and through the other individuals that have joined us in India over the years to build that understanding. And if I could just go back to the 2019 tournament, one of the things we did was to have the Richmond Institute of Sports Leadership, which is run out of Richmond Football Club. They came over with a group of 20 of their students and a highly qualified coach and a coordinator who helped to deliver a training program that certified about 30 of our players. And so, you know, taking those steps where you actually are delivering the training, you know, amongst the wider playing group, so that you're building that expertise and that knowledge base for the longer term. And so that's why, you know, it is a long term, you know, you've got to do it. You can only really grow it if you're in it for the longer term. And that's the approach we've taken.
So, and this is for any one of the three of you. Do you see a point in time in the future where one of the women involved in footy in India might make the leap to the AFLW?
Well, I mean, I think, absolutely, you know, why not? But what you've got to do is have really widespread participation, because you're only going to foster that talent if you get someone at a fairly young age introduced to the sport, and then playing it through their, you know, early teens, And I think, Aussie rules is unique that way because of the skills that are involved. They're not, they're unique to the sport. Something like hand passing, you really only come across in footy. So unless you've been doing that from an early age, it's hard to, even if you're a great athlete, it's very hard to pick that up later in life. And so what I've noticed with the guys that have played, I mean, we had some coming along in the very early days who were 8, 9, 10 years old, right? So they didn't have an existing sport that they had played,
Okay.
repeatedly, and they had not developed those skills as yet. So then they're introduced to footy, and they're very, that's a formative stage for them. And so now, as 20-year-olds,
Mm-hmm.
they've been playing the game as long as a lot of Australian kids would have been playing it,
Right,
and
right.
they do have those skills. So you kind of got to get them early, and that's why I say it's a long-term thing. If you can get girls 8, 9, 10 playing the game, then yeah, why not? As an 18-year-old, you might be at that very elite level. And I mean, it would be amazing to see that.
Yeah, and I asked that mainly because there are there are so many women that are playing in the comp this year that have previously played Gaelic football in Ireland. Yeah, that was kind of where that question was kind of coming from, that direction. So I didn't know if that transition would be possible.
And one of the things we'd love to do is to get an AFLW player across to India, because we've always found, anyone who's played at the elite level, we've had, ex-AFL and AFL players come to India.
Mm-hmm.
When you get them to India, the amount of enthusiasm and interest you generate around that event is huge. So, I think if we could get an AFLW player over, and I'm sure we would once travel resumes, then that could be a real driver of interest.
That'd be terrific. I think that'd be absolutely terrific. So, Rhan, you've made some treks to India. Lincoln lived there for a while. Now, you said you were living overseas as well. Were you living in India as well? Your mic's still off there, sir.
All right. It's the COVID crash cry, isn't it? You're on mute. I know. I lived in England for a little bit, just
okay.
For 6 months.
Okay.
And so I saw the sporting culture there, and then I lived in China for a couple of years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So, any in the time that you spent in India, while Lincoln was there, any kind of funny things or any funny or memorable stories that happened related to footy while you were in India? Anything that you can think of that still brings a chuckle or a smile to you?
I mean, yeah, there's probably half a dozen anecdotes specifically, but I mean, I think it's just the amazement when we take over a group of people at the willingness, combined with the lack of skills early on, which makes it, the spectacle of people playing footy so engaging, because for us, it's such a familiar thing. We've got the footy there and we know that so well. It's part of and then the backdrop is a fort in Rajasthan with, 100 kids playing with gusto. So it's sort of, it's like the contrast. There's something just amusing about both the foreign and the alien that I always remark on, I always think about. It's just such a beautiful thing.
Well, Shantanu, let me ask you this question, sir, because you living in India, and I guess that, Rhan, this can be directed to you as well, since you had lived in China for a while. The AFL has made a concerted effort to try to grow the game in China, with Port Adelaide playing games there over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
In the last year and a half, I think there's been a little bit of, angst that has grown between China and Australia. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be growing between the United States and China in the not too distant future as well. But I'm going to stay away from geopolitical stuff besides that. Do you think, Shantanu, do you think that the likelihood of the AFL trying to bring a a regular season game like they had done with Port Adelaide in Shanghai? Do you think that that's something that could happen in India in the near future?
I do think that can happen, but uh, it's not the near future. It's more
Okay.
of a long plan that I can think of.
Okay. I mean,
Because
I would guess
we don't
there's
have the resources right away
okay.
for a
Well,
full-fledged game.
Link can speak to that because he was party, or we were party, Link more so, to some conversations with Port Adelaide and Greater Western Sydney, I think, Link, to get a game happening.
That's right. The AFL sent a fact-finding mission over in 2018, and they visited a number of places in India with the idea of exploring how feasible it would be to play a match 4 points in India. And they were looking at practical and logistical considerations. How do we get a team over there efficiently? What are the grounds like?
Mm-hmm.
What are the facilities like? But also, what is the commercial appetite for the game in India? And obviously, it would, for the AFL, it's got to be driven by a commercial consideration. In that, are they going to get a return on their investment into a place like India? And as part of that fact-finding mission, we ran a half-day session with our Mumbai participants, a lot of kids from schools and just regular players are involved in what we were doing, and they came along. So there were Essendon, Greater Western Sydney, and a representative from the AFL itself. We demonstrated what we could do at a grassroots level, because the idea being that if they were to actually play a game, that's a great opportunity to encourage participation in the sport itself. And we'd love, we would love to have been, and we still would, to assist them to roll that out at an actual, grassroots level. I think in the end, for whatever reason, they decided not to pursue that match to take place. But I think it's definitely something that will still be on their agenda.
Okay.
I'd say it's probably been pushed down the list because, COVID, and there will be other matters that are more pressing. Yeah. But in the future, definitely.
Well, because I know that this year, had COVID not happened, this year, round one, GWS and Essendon were supposed to be playing in Los Angeles, round one, but that of course didn't happen. And I don't know the first thing about cricket grounds in India. Is there a facility that would, size-wise, in terms of the grounds, there would be something size enough, but is there something that would have enough seating capacity that would hopefully entice, fans, have enough room for hopefully the enticed supporters to come watch the game?
We do have the capacity.
Okay.
Kolkata, if I'm not wrong, has the second biggest stadium in the world.
I did not know that. Cool. So that's got to seat well over 100,000 people then.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay.
But I guess, more importantly than the capacity is the actual condition of the ground, the surface, because I think for footy clubs, like for AFL clubs, their first consideration would be player safety, and coaches would have the veto on anything like a decision to play a match overseas. If the first thing they'd be saying is, what's the surface like, and is Dusty Martin going to do an ankle when he runs out there? And if there was any prospect that that it's not up to Australian standards, there's just no way it would happen. And I know when they were in Mumbai, they went out to DY Patel Stadium, Shantanu, and I mean, from what I understand, that's a really high quality ground that could easily be brought up to the standard. I think it's a 50,000 seat capacity, so it's not
45.
Yeah, so it's not the biggest ground, but I don't think you'd need, you don't need 100,000 people. You just need a good surface and some TV cameras, because really that's what it's about, in terms of getting a commercial return.
Okay, I was just wondering about, because I was just thinking that in the current political climate, I wasn't sure if the AFL was going to be going back to China anytime soon. I didn't know how that was going to work.
Yeah, but then maybe those sorts of diplomatic channels become even more important than they were previously, because it keeps a dialogue open. And
good point.
I heard a really good interview A guy's written a book about the whole Port Adelaide tie-up with China and all the backroom workings that went into that, and they had to get the fans on board. They had to have Australian government involved, and that it was a fascinating interview and insight into what went on behind the scenes. And his point was that, yes, as I was saying, it becomes even more important to keep those things alive, because that's how we increase understanding, not misunderstanding.
That's a great point. That is a great point. And me being a government teacher feels a little bit dumb for taking the approach and asking the questions the way that I did.
No, I mean, but it's true, because at a macro level, that's what's going on.
Right.
But when you sort of drill down, then I think and the AFL, it's going to be different for them. Who knows what their priorities are right now? And there's not going to be money available for something that's not giving a return, as I understand it. So
yeah.
There's a lot of other considerations that they would have, but hopefully those international ventures can continue and prosper.
So, Shantanu, what goals do you have for, with COVID hopefully on the wane, on its way out, and what plans does India have for footy in 2021?
In 2021, we just want to keep it going. We want to keep our activities going right now.
Okay.
Because of this, the schools are shut right now, so there's nothing we can do. So the moment everything opens up, we want to get back to training, and we want everyone to be involved. So,
and I hope that happens.
Yeah,
I hope that happens. It's it has been a very interesting year around this globe. I mean, everywhere it's been an interesting year.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So, yeah, I want to go back, Rhan, real quickly to something you said a couple of minutes ago, where you had done a recent event with your group, and how well that had gone. I just have, and this kind of gets back to getting COVID over with. Wasn't it just nice to actually be able to do a recent event instead of being sequestered away at home for weeks at a time?
Yeah, there's a huge passion. I mean, when we turned up to this event, well, there's been a few actually, but we had one in Sunbury that we'd actually built as a multi-sports day. So we did footy nines and cricket in the same location. It's cricket season officially here, or it was. And then we turned up in busloads of people coming from different areas, probably about 300, maybe 200 kilometers radius. People coming from, and people getting off the bus and just hugs all around, and real sort of fraternal feel to it, and everyone just remarked how good it was to have physical contact. And I often talk about for our participants that the only time some of them have physical contact is at footy, and that's whether that be a hug or just playing physical game. And you just think about all the people that have been denied that experience that they would otherwise get through sporting clubs, and it's just really apparent. And like, as I say, it's such a beautiful thing to stand in front of, because we get out as the coordinators and everyone loves what we do. We have this thing that people love to be a part of. So it's a special thing.
And you're doing it so they can enjoy it. You're not doing this because, hey, you're not sitting there going, hey, look what I've accomplished for you. You're doing it so you can see the joy in their eyes and on their faces while they're enjoying this.
Well, yeah, look, I mean, I've said it before. I'm not there to inspire anyone.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. I turn up and I see what, the average participant will go through just to get to a game of footy, and that's undeniable. Like, if I can't get my shit sorted, as part of my job to be there on time, then we've got to wonder what's going on, because, some of these guys, they've got chaos going on in their lives, and they have to catch 2 buses and walk, and sort out their kids and, beg, borrow and steal to get there. So, it's very easy to meet my end of it. And it's not about inspiring people. It's just about providing them, as we spoke about, the chance to see their own qualities and attributes and competence on display. And that's all we're doing. We're just providing a stage there.
Now, I'm going to use an analogy here, and this movie is on almost 24 hours a day here in the United States. But I'm going to ask: have you ever seen the film Shawshank Redemption?
I have.
Okay, what you just said there was that you were an awful lot like Tim Robbins' character, the young man, the guy who went to prison, who did not kill his wife and her boyfriend. Okay, I'm not saying that that's the case at all. What you just said, you were a lot like him, sitting on the roof of the building that they had just tarred while all of the other guys were drinking their beers. He was just sitting back, relaxing, absorbing it all, looking at all of it, bringing it all in, and just, not saying, hey, look what I did for you. Just basically sitting there going, enjoy this, guys. That's kind of what that is.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's what it is. I think, that's what's drawn Rhan and I to India for footy is you create an opportunity for people to participate. We've used footy, but it could be any sport or recreation. And then you do the work to make it happen. But at something like the carnival, you can step back and see 300 people involved that have come from all over the country. I mean, it gives, there's a personal reward there, which anyone would feel if they went through that process. So, I think for me and for Rhan, that keeps us going because it's just a amazing feeling.
Yeah.
That's as simple as that in some ways. Like, what we can do is organize, and is resource and coordinate. They're the things that we can do. So if we do it, there's this, great result, and it's as simple as that, I think. Sometimes.
And Shantanu, you are, with you now being, the great power broker of the game in India now, and I'm just going to use their line because that's the one they used. Okay, so you are starting to, I think, be able to see some of that as well, where you get to put forth the effort to get things organized, and then you get to sit back and see the joy on the faces of these young kids who are discovering this fantastic game.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You being in this long enough and being with Lincoln and Rhan all this while, learning from them, it eventually falls into us and the same feeling, the same values, you could say, in a sense that they helped us in some way, and now we are trying to give it back to the community. So,
and that's fantastic. Now, may I ask you this question? Do you have any children of your own?
Oh no, I'm not married. So
not married. Okay, so when you get married and you have kids, are you going to be looking forward to helping them discover the game of footy as well?
Oh, 100%. Of course.
Fantastic. I'm sitting here in Ohio, knowing that, granted, my kids don't live at home anymore. One's in college and one's in the Navy, but nobody that lives in my house has ever watched a second of footy with me before.
Oh.
It's just not something that has interested them at all. I've tried to get my son involved with it. He wants to come with me to Australia to watch some footy, but he's never actually watched it himself. I actually got him to sit down and watch the first half of the '89 grand final, I guess. So he did see that. Okay. But beyond that, he hasn't seen anything else. And I've shared my Watch AFL password with him and said, here, please log in and watch whenever you want to. He hasn't done it yet. So do you get a chance to watch a lot of the AFL at home then?
So we do watch the preliminary finals and the grand final. So we do watch that, but not every week.
Okay. Well, that's something else you should work on then, is seeing about getting getting some of the games broadcast on television there. I think if you were able to do that,
the game is broadcasted.
okay.
There is a channel, but it's midday, so it's at 3:30 in the afternoon. So
okay, well that makes sense. I would like 3:30 in the afternoon. That would be a nice change of pace instead of 3:30 in the morning. You know, the cats are playing tomorrow at 4:50 a.m. for me. So
it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, well, I drink a lot of coffee on the weekends, a lot of coffee. So Shantanu, you know, one last question here, and I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up here. Let's look. It's 2021 right now. In 2026, 5 years from now, what do you want to see footy looking like in India?
Footy, well, I want footy to be a part of the community. We've always worked, that's how we got into it. So I really want footy to get ingrained into the grassroots. It's like any other sport again, but because as I believe the skills involved are much more than other sports. I feel it's the best overall game development, or you could say every kind of development. It's mental and physical development that goes into it. It will help everyone, and I want it to be present everywhere in India. That's what we are planning to do.
And I hope that happens. I really do. And I think you have a couple of allies sitting right next to you on the screen that are going to, you know, do what they can to help make that happen as well from where they are. And it sounds like you've got a really good group of people that are working with you, and you got some excited kids that are beginning to enjoy the game. And I hope that, you know, that the difficulties that you have with, you know, with maybe the stigma of you know, some young girls who may want to be involved with the sport, you know, not being able to get the opportunity to. I hope that you're able to smooth some of those out and get more kids involved, because, you know, getting kids out and doing some fun things like this is, you know, is, I think, extraordinarily important, whether it's this game or anything else, quite frankly, as long as they're getting out and doing something. How, you know, where can people find out about AFL India? Where can they find out about it? Is there something online where they can go, or?
Well, we're redeveloping our website at the moment, so we don't have anything live. I think probably the Facebook page, Shantanu, would have the most interesting content in terms of if people, you know, wanted to see back through recent history, as, you know, events and things that have taken place. There's some great photos there through the years. So that would be, what's that page, Shantanu? Do you know?
I'll share the link. It's Australian Rules Football in Mumbai, and I think we've renamed it. I just have to relook.
Okay, terrific.
I guess one thing, Craig, that I always feel needs to be said is that AFL's a brand, and it's a corporation.
Right.
And the game is Aussie rules. Right. And you know, the AFL, for all the good that they do, and they do some good, we're not there to promote the AFL. We're there to promote Aussie rules as a means of social engagement. So in all, you know, particularly around the not-for-profit stuff, you know, it's not AFL. The game is not AFL.
It's just footy.
Yeah, it's footy. Yeah. So that's right. But and particularly if people are looking to look what we're doing, it's not under AFL India. It's Aussie rules. Typically, and that's how we'll go forward. So we use the game as a means to engage. Whereas the AFL use footy as a means to deepen their own. No, I won't say that.
You kind of cut out there for just a second. Was it to deepen their own pockets? Was that what it was?
No, I didn't. I don't know.
Putting words into his mouth, Craig.
I just was asking. I don't know if that's what he actually said or not.
No, I mean, and we understand that they need to be financially viable, but we're not there to promote their product.
Right.
You know, it's everyone's game. They don't own the game, and so it's just a distinction. You know, that it sort of crept in that people started calling it AFL, but the game's not AFL.
Right.
So just it's worth saying, because
And that's one of the other things that I'm working on learning about, and it's going to be one of my off-season projects next year, is doing like a history of the different state leagues, so I can learn a little bit about them as well. I interviewed and Lincoln, I talked to you about this when we talked last week about the gentleman that's the journalist up there in Darwin,
Darren
Jordan Clark something. Yeah, I think his last name's Clark. I believe.
I didn't.
Yeah. But I'm hoping to connect with people, in
and it's so rich, the state leagues. I mean,
yeah.
Each of them have an amazing history, and so that's definitely, you'll find so much there to explore.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that. I mean, I have so many irons in the fire right now that have been. As I think I told you when we talked the last time, it's been like trying to get a drink of water out of a fire hose. It's just, there's just so much coming at me as far as the number of interviews that I've been trying to set up. And I've had two former players that have reached out here just recently. One that I'm going to be setting up an interview with here very soon, who's he's the father, part of a father-son with the Kangaroos. And he's going to come on and kind of talk about the preview for the Kangaroos. And then I interviewed the son of former D's player, Frank Davis, who played back in the late through the mid 60s through the early 70s. Then he went on to become a scout and a member of the front office with the Hawks when they were in the finals for like 10 years in a row. So it's his son lives in Minnesota here in the United States, and I talked to him, previewing the D's, and he's going to put me in touch with his dad. So it has just been amazing meeting so many people that have a passion for this game, and just learning about the game from them, and getting reminded again that I need to keep referring to it as footy rather than AFL, which I fall into that trap all the time. Okay, when I'm talking about the game elsewhere, I do fall into that trap, and I apologize for that. I do end up talking mostly about the AFL, but I have to remember and remind myself to not do that. So, and it's okay. I mean, and you didn't really call me out on it. It's okay. It's not like you had me up on top of that building, leaning backwards and getting ready to drop me off of it, like happened to, I can't remember his character name anymore. And I've seen that movie about 100 times. Whatever Tim Robbins' character name was. It wasn't Red.
Andy Dufresne.
Yes. Andy Dufresne. Thank you.
There you go.
Yes, Andy.
The Indian amongst us goes bang. Well,
here, the interesting thing about that prison, and this is I'm being very serious about that prison, is about 50 miles from where I live, where they filmed that movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep. That prison. Once I get done here, I will find a link for that. I'll email it to the three of you. But yeah, that's it. Sure. There still is an active prison next door to it, but that was the old prison that was in operation for over 100 years. And they built a new modern prison next door to it. That one's been closed. That was closed long before they filmed Shawshank. But that was and that great scene. I don't know if you guys have seen the video on YouTube where somebody has taken the scene where he turns on the music and plays it over the PA system. Have you seen the video online where somebody has dubbed in the Cats theme song? Oh, it's wonderful. You guys seen that before? Oh, I'll see if I can find that as well, because that's absolutely cool. Because he's just, and it's again like with the beers, he's just sitting up there. He puts on the song, and it's and it starts out with the horns at the beginning, and the guy's sitting in the bathroom reading the comic books and realizes, something's going wrong here. But enough about Shawshank. This is not a movie review podcast here. But gentlemen, I cannot thank you enough for getting up early today. Now, Shantanu, you got up the earliest, did you not?
Yeah, it was 6:30.
It's 6:30 there right now?
No, it's 8 o'clock right now.
It's 8 o'clock right now. Okay,
yeah,
so
we started at 6:30. Yeah.
I truly appreciate you coming on today, sir. And Lincoln, Rhan, gentlemen, I truly appreciate you coming on as well. I've had an absolute blast. I hope you guys have enjoyed this.
Great.
Anytime.
Pleasure.
Anytime.
Pleasure. I mean, great to be on. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Rhan, it may be worthwhile coming back on, maybe, and I don't know if you would even be something you would consider, coming back on and talking about what you've done with RecLink and what you've done with the club that you had coached in the past, because I think that's a fascinating story in and of itself.
Absolutely.
To see how
I mean it. Anytime.
Okay, to see how that game has helped, people get to a good place in their lives.
I'm always interested in talking about that. But yeah, anytime, Craig.
Fantastic. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, my guests have been Lincoln Harris and Rhan Harris, and I believe I just figured out towards the end of the podcast that they are in fact brothers. Somebody alluded to that partway through the interview, and I didn't have to ask that question. I think I had it confirmed for me. I am correct on that, am I not, gentlemen?
Correct, yes.
Okay, good, because if not, I'm going to go back and edit all of this out. I'm sorry, guys, it's late here. And Shantanu, Joglekar, Shantanu, I cannot thank you enough, sir, for getting up this morning. It has been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
For me too, as well. Thanks for having me.
You bet, absolutely. I love having the opportunity to talk footy with somebody who has discovered it and fallen in love with it from a different point than I have, but from somebody who did not grow up at the game. I mean, these other two gentlemen here, footy is in their DNA.
It is.
Okay. We've had to have a transfusion in order to get it into our system. Okay. So gentlemen, I truly, truly appreciate you coming on, and thanks so very much. I really do thank you for that. Okay.
Thank you for having us, Greg.
Thanks so very much, guys.
Thanks, Greg.
All right.
You bet.
Talk to you again.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you enjoyed that discussion that I had with Lincoln and with Shantanu and with Rhan. A lot of fun talking to those gentlemen. I absolutely want to get them back on the podcast again, especially to talk Cats football, as well as talking about how things are going in India once COVID has begun to subside with Shantanu as well. A great discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, if you got an idea for a show topic, or if you know someone that you think should be a guest on the show, maybe it's you, be great if you could drop me a line. You could do that through a voicemail on my website. You could drop me a DM on Twitter, or shoot me an email at yankonthefooty.com. Excuse me, yankonthefooty@gmail.com. I haven't said that one in a while. I better make sure I get that correct there. Remember, you can find all of the episodes from my podcast at yankonthefooty.com. They're also on your favorite podcast provider. And I'm going to start getting some new episodes back up on the YouTube channel. I've kind of been a little neglectful in that, as I was putting out a number of episodes during the month of March. March was actually my biggest month in terms of listens to the podcast. I truly appreciate all of you who tuned in. That was great. I hope you'll consider giving me a review on Apple Podcasts, or a review right on the yankonthefooty.com website as well. That would be terrific. Remember, you can reach me at yankonthefooty@gmail.com, at yank_ on Twitter. Excuse me, at yank_ on Twitter, as well as on Facebook and Instagram at yankonthefooty. And again, if you haven't done so yet, I hope you'll consider signing up for the email list, and maybe checking out, helping out the podcast through the Buy Me a Coffee page, or through the Redbubble page. And if you happen to buy any gear for the podcast, if you get yourself some stickers, you get yourself a t-shirt, something like that, do me a favor, send me a picture of that in action, so I can go ahead and put it out on my social media and share it with everybody else. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening. This was a labor of love episode right here. I truly enjoyed talking with these gentlemen and learning about how they brought this great game to a country where there's a great opportunity for it to grow, most certainly. And Shantanu was extraordinarily insightful about the game and what he's doing now to help bring the game to more and more people. And I'm glad he remembered Andy Dufresne's name, because I completely forgot it. That's I'm a little disappointed in myself, as I mentioned, if you listen to the whole episode there, that the film was shot only about 50 miles from where I'm sitting right now, and I couldn't remember the character's name. I guess that's what happens when you get old. You start to forget things. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening, because while many of us are fans of our teams, of our clubs, deep down, we're fans of a game that we all love, and that's the game of footy. And for those of you who are in the U.S. that are wanting to watch the game, unfortunately, at this point in time, there's not been an agreement reached between the AFL and Fox Sports, or between the AFL and ESPN to bring any footy on regular television this year here in the States. It sucks. I'm sorry that that's the case. I know there are highlights that are showing up on YouTube, so you can always check those out. I cannot, endorse nefarious ways of finding the games. I'm sure they're out there. I can't say to do that at all. If you've become a supporter of your club, I strongly encourage you to consider maybe becoming an international member where you get access to the Watch AFL app that it also gets you some swag for your club as well. Maybe, a cap or a scarf and an international, ID badge and a bumper sticker for your car and that sort of thing. Or you can actually get your membership through the USAFL, which gives them a little bit of money, or through Afana. Again, you could also get that membership through afana.com, which has helped to work at bringing Australian rules football on television here in North America for over 2.5 decades. And these folks do a bang-up job with that, and they're working really hard putting updates up on their website about the game, letting us know that the pressure that they're trying to put on the league as well as on the networks, and quite frankly, I don't understand why they have not decided to just get on board. I've been putting tweets out on Twitter darn near every day for the last couple of weeks about the game, asking the AFL and Fox Sports and ESPN why they haven't spoken with one another. If you're not able to watch the games, are you tuning in for a 5-year-old episode of Poker Stars or the World Series of Poker and that sort of thing? I know I wouldn't be, and that's it's really sad that it hasn't come back on yet. So don't feel afraid to reach out to them and ask where it is. Yeah, you think back to the 1980s here in the United States with the advertising with the "I want my MTV." Well, I want my AFL. Now, I do have the Watch AFL app so I can watch the games, but I know there are a lot of you that have not made the leap to do that yet. I strongly encourage you to do so, but it may not be feasible for everyone. And I think it's just it's a shame that the games haven't come here yet this year, after having whetted the appetite of so many people last year with airing the games that they did. So it's really disappointing that that's the case. So, and one last thing before I go, I did want to mention, if you listened to the live episode that came out earlier this week, I did talk about how I had a wonderful Easter with my car getting hit by a drunk driver at 4:45 in the morning on Easter Sunday. Well, still have not located the driver yet, but I did talk to the collision center, the body shop that's doing the repairs on my van. And, well, fortunately, I have insurance on it, and $4,835 to fix my van. Guy did a hell of a job on it. I'd like to shake their hand. Not really. So, ladies and gents, enough about that. It was just a really crappy week as far as that went, but it was a great footy weekend, and we had the initial game of the round with Essendon and Sydney yesterday evening, or yesterday morning in my case, and looking forward to getting up tomorrow morning with the Port Adelaide and the Richmond game to start my day. Folks, I cannot thank you enough for listening. I truly appreciate you tuning into the podcast. I love your kind words. I'd love to hear from more of you. I'd love to get little snippets of voicemails and that sort of thing to include in the episodes. Yeah, it's a great opportunity for me to hear your thoughts, and I would love to use those snippets and those predictions. Even if you want to use your tips for the next round, and add those into the following week's live episode. That would be fantastic. So I appreciate you tuning in. I cannot thank you enough. This has been an absolute joy doing the podcast over the last 16 months with you. I'm not going away. I don't want you to think that that's the case, but I am having a lot of fun with it. All right. So, folks, as always, having watched a couple of these goals over the last couple of weeks, may your dribble kick never hit the post. And until next time, I will catch you later. This has been episode number 88 of A Yank on the Footy. Don't forget that you can reach me at yank_on or to yankonthefooty@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at A Yank on the Footy. And also, bottom line, if you want to find the catch-all for the entire podcast, go to yankonthefooty.com. Everything you need is there, and I hope that you'll consider sharing this episode or your favorite episode with your friends and family on your social media sites. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, goodbye.